Hello, sixth graders, and happy Monday. Today's going to be a great day. We talked about surface area a little bit last week. Today we're going to talk about different kinds of three-dimensional shapes and how we can represent them in a two-dimensional way. I know you're going to do a great job, and so does Mr. Smiles. Let's dive right into the video. Let's start by finding the area of some parallelograms. Look at the first parallelogram. What's the base of this parallelogram? It's 12 kilometers. What's the height of this parallelogram? It's 11 kilometers. Remember, the height is any line that's at a 90-degree angle to the base, even if it's represented outside of the shape. So what's the area? Go ahead and find the area now. The area of a parallelogram is base times height. 12 times 11 is 132 kilometers squared. Let's look at the next parallelogram. What's the base? Here the base is 5 2/10 kilometers. What's the height? The height is 4 and not 6. 4 is at a right angle to the base. So what's the area? The area is 5 2/10 times 4, or 20 8/10 kilometers squared. Now you try one entirely on your own. What's the base, height, and area of the next parallelogram? The base is 5. The height is also 5 because that's the line that's at a right angle to the base. So the area is 5 times 5, or 25 square inches. Let's look now at triangles. Remember, triangles are half of a parallelogram. So when I multiply the base times height, I have to divide by 2. Let's look at the first triangle. What's the base? The base here is 11 inches. What's the height? The height is 4 inches. What's the area? First, what's 11 times 4? 11 times 4 is 44. I'm not finished because a triangle is half of a parallelogram, so I need to divide 44 divided by 2. What's 44 divided by 2? 44 divided by 2 is 22 square inches. Let's look at the next triangle. What's the base? It's 12 feet. What's the height? It's 5 feet because 5 is at a right angle to the base. So what's the area? Well, 12 times 5 is 60. And 60 divided by 2 is 30 square feet. Now you try one. What's the base, height, and area of the triangle on the right? The base is 12. The height is 8 because 8 is at a right angle to the base. When I multiply 12 times 8, I get 96. Then I divide by 2. Because the triangle is half of the parallelogram. 96 divided by 2 is 48 square centimeters. We've also worked on finding the area of trapezoids. Remember, to find the area of a trapezoid, I can add the two bases, multiply times the height, and then divide by 2. So let's start. The two bases here are 8 and 14. What's 8 plus 14? 8 plus 14 is 22. Now I can multiply times the height. What's 22 times 6? Well, 6 times 2 is 12, and 6 times 2 is 12, plus 1 more is 132. Now I can divide by 2. What's 132 divided by 2? Well, 2 goes into 13 6 times. When I subtract, I can bring down my 2. 2 goes into 12 6 times with no remainder. So the area of this shape is 66 feet squared. Let's look at another example. Let's find the area of this trapezoid. First, the two bases are 7 and 9. What's 7 plus 9? 7 plus 9 is 16. What's the height? It's 5. What's 16 times 5? 5 times 6 is 30. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 3 more is 8. Now I need to divide by 2 to find the area. What's 80 divided by 2? Well, 2 goes into 8 4 times. That's 8, so there's nothing left over. 2 goes into 0 0 times, so the answer is 40. The area is 40 square inches. Now you try one. What's the area of the last trapezoid? 8 plus 6 is 14. 14 times the height of 4 is 56. When I divide by 2, I see my area is 28 square units. Today we're going to continue talking about surface area by talking about other three-dimensional figures. First, a polyhedron is a three-dimensional figure made with many faces that are polygons. Make sure you're writing polyhedron down in your notes. We're going to study two different kinds of polyhedrons. A prism is a polyhedron with two parallel faces and rectangles as the remaining faces. The prism is named by the shape of its two parallel bases. So let's name the prisms below. A has rectangles and its two bases are triangles. So that's a triangular prism. B is a special kind of rectangular prism where every face is a square. It's called a cube. C is also a triangular prism. The two bases are triangles, and the rest of the faces are rectangles. What do you think is the name of shape D? Shape D is a pentagonal prism. It has two pentagons as faces, and the rest of the faces are rectangles. What do you think is the name of shape E? Shape E is a rectangular prism. It has two bases that are rectangles, and the rest of the faces are also rectangles. What is the name of shape F? Shape F is a hexagonal prism. It has two hexagons, and the rest of its faces are rectangles. A pyramid, make sure your paper looks like my screen, is a polyhedron that has one base and triangles as its remaining faces. Just like prisms, pyramids are named after their base. So if I look at shape P, that's a triangular pyramid. The base is a triangle, and the rest of the faces are triangles. What do you think is the name for shape Q? Shape Q is also a rectangular pyramid. The base is a rectangle, and the rest of the faces are triangles. What is the name for shape R? Shape R is a pentagonal pyramid. What about shape S? Shape S has a base that's a hexagon, and the rest of the faces are triangles. It's a hexagonal pyramid. Now let's try to match some nets with their three-dimensional figure. A net is a two-dimensional representation of a three-dimensional figure. So if I unfolded the figure and made all the sides flat, it would create a net. Let's look at this rectangular pyramid. What kind of faces does a rectangular pyramid have? How many rectangles will it have as its face? It will have one rectangle. How many triangles would a rectangular pyramid have as faces? It would have 4 triangles. So which net matches? A is the net of the rectangular pyramid. Let's try another. First, what's the name of the second shape? It's a rectangular prism. It has 2 rectangles as its bases, and the rest of the faces are also rectangles. So what shapes would be used to construct the faces of this figure? How many rectangles? This figure would be made from 6 rectangles that aren't all the same size. So which net matches? D shows the net of the rectangular prism. Let's look at one more. Here is a triangular prism. Which net do you think matches the triangular prism? C is the net that matches the triangular prism. It has 3 rectangles and 2 triangles. Now let's try another activity. Match each net on the left to its prism or pyramid on the right. Look at A. Which prism or pyramid matches with net A? F and A match. They both have 6 rectangles as their faces. What is the name for shape F? Shape F is a rectangular prism. It has 2 rectangles as bases, and the rest of the faces are rectangles as well. Which shape matches net B? Net B matches with figure D. It has 2 triangles and 3 rectangles as faces. What's the name of figure D? It's a triangular prism. Which figure matches with net C? Figure E matches with net C. What's the name for figure E? Figure E is a rectangular pyramid. It has a rectangle as its base, and the rest of its faces are triangles. Now we have 4 more questions to try. For each shape, say whether it's a prism with mostly rectangle faces or a pyramid with mostly triangles. Name the shape of the base or bases, and then name the solid. Let's look at figure A. Is that a prism or a pyramid? Figure A is a prism. Most of its faces are rectangles. What's the shape of the bases? Each base is a pentagon. We can use those 2 pieces of information to name the shape. What's the name of this shape? This is a pentagonal prism. Now let's look at the next shape. Is that a prism or a pyramid? That shape is a pyramid. What's the shape of the base? It's a rectangle. Using the information we have, name the 3-dimensional solid. It's a rectangular pyramid. Now let's look at 2 last examples. Look at figure C. Is that a prism or a pyramid? It's a pyramid. Most of the faces are triangles. What's the shape of the base? The base is also a triangle. We can use that information to name the solid. What's the name of the solid? It's a triangular pyramid. Now let's name our last figure. Is D a prism or pyramid? It's a prism. It has mostly rectangular faces. What's the shape of the base? The bases are triangles. So what's the name of the solid? That's a triangular prism. You've done a great job on this video. Now go to IXL Practice EE3 to identify the nets of 3-dimensional figures.